Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
RGF Executive Search presents Japan Expanding Business Horizons in India, an event designed to provide a common platform for Indo-Japan business development. At this event, we saw luminaries from the world of business come together and welcome Japanese industries and work ethics in India. The event was marked by the presence of the Honorable Minister of State for the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman.
There are a lot of interest in the Indian economy now, both in India and also particularly in Japan. I only feel that after this visit of Mr. Modi, the relationship between Japan and India is certainly going to set the pace for that description which rightly the ambassador brought on forth, that 21st century is definitely going to be an Asian century. As you all are aware, we've had a strategic global partnership with Japan. And between Japan and India, the bilateral relationship can only be driven by the economic considerations. Trade, cooperation, economic, otherwise investments, and so on. We have set up a special cell called Japan Plus for expediting clearances to the challenges which Japanese companies face in India. So let me tell you all that this Japan Plus cell, the special cell which is being established in my ministry, will expedite clearances for Japanese companies who wish to invest in India. This cell will fast-track proposals from Japanese companies and SMEs and will lead to increased FDI from Japan, along with increase in the number of Japanese companies operating in India.
Further, during the event, a panel discussion was held to discuss the growing interest of Japan in the Indian economy and what lessons India can learn from Japan. The esteemed panelists on the discussion were R. Suresh, MD, RGF Executive Search; Aditya Vij, CEO, Fortis Healthcare; Shin Oya, Chief Representative India, Japan Bank for International Cooperation; and CP Gurnani, MD and CEO, Tech Mahindra.
To my left, I wanted to find out from you. You promote investment. You also are a major investor and stakeholder in the much talked about DMIC infrastructure project. Now, I want to ask you one fundamental question. When the Japanese industrial groups beehive into India, what's their main excitement? Other than the fact that there's a big potential here to do business, but what's exciting them?
I think you said except for that, potential or expansion market, but I need to repeat that. That's a very big factor, actually, of course. So huge market, huge demand coming from India. This is, I think, the strongest paving point of India. But of course, this is not only a cause where many Japanese companies are interested in. When we said that the demand, not only that the sheer number of population, but also I think that purchasing power. Of course, when we compare that GDP per capita itself, it's not so high compared with the Southeastern Asian or ASEAN countries, but it's growing.
Thank you, Aditya. You had the unique experience of running a car business in India. So, while running a car business, what obstacles you face? I'm being a little bit negative on this front. What do you see as challenges for anybody investing in manufacturing in India?
Having spent over 2 decades in the automotive business, I would say the business was very, very, very tough in India. Things started changing, obviously, when we, in 1994, decided to liberalize and became pretty much on even keel between global manufacturers and domestic manufacturers. But issues such as it being a luxury product, where it has never been the case in any developed part of the world, excise duty differences, differences in import duties for finished product versus CKDs and SKDs and so on and so forth. Fairly complex tax systems. The other thing, I guess, is based on our tradition, we were labor intensive as an industry. On the other hand, clearly, Japanese leadership in Suzuki demonstrated that local automation, local ingenuity could yield much better results, much better productivity, and much lower cost over time. So whereas we had the traditional issues, I always used to say we have archaic labor laws, and frankly, we still have the old Factories Act, which is prevalent today, and local labor laws in the States. On the other hand, with the current overtures, I'm so optimistic all this is set to change with a new manufacturing policy in the offing. All that is in government visibility today, and therefore the opportunity is huge to give impetus to the economy, which will yield and result in excellent growth for international companies wanting to do business in India, and specifically with the relationship we have with Japan.
India has a huge market, and as Mr. Modi mentioned, that the demography, this is very important. So you have very good demography, and population is growing, so very good market. Second thing we should not omit is you have very good talent. I mean, good engineering, good human resources. So Japanese companies would like to utilize such kind of talent more.
I think it's a great event. These opportunities to meet people from both from the Japanese side and from the Indian side. I think this is the way that the businesses and industries can come together. Ultimately, we at Shell, and I personally also believe that collaboration is the way to move forward. And collaboration is only going to happen through building mutual trust and understanding. And it's events like these that help to enable that building of trust and understanding.
I want to take off from where Aditya is leaving, CP. Now, is there a big interest in doing business that is giving you outsourcing contracts by Japanese as much as they want to explore Indian markets?
I think I'm going to first try and chime into what Aditya was talking regarding manufacturing, because I do wear another hat of being on the executive board of Mahindra & Mahindra. Now, my personal opinion is that when we sit down in our management classes, when we are trying to learn, we always take the examples of Suzuki, that Suzuki is succeeding in India despite of all the odds. That the reality of what we are talking today, what we consider complex today, whether it is land reforms, whether it is the taxation, whether it is the excise regime, and so on and so forth. That about labor also, Suzuki faced the similar challenges. They could have come in a joint venture and eventually become a majority or almost a total owner. But the reality is that they worked out a method of addressing those challenges and being able to rule the roads in India. That the fact is that Suzuki does not rule the roads anywhere else in the world and only in India. So to me, the difference again is, if you take the automobile sector, we have two manufacturers, Honda and Toyota, which have come in a little later, and I don't have to say it, the numbers speak for themselves, that Honda is more successful. Now, Toyota is the largest car manufacturer in the world, but why is it not successful in India? Why is Honda or Suzuki, which is not there on the lead table, and they are trailing behind Toyota? So nothing has changed. Madam Minister did not change anything. Mr. Aditya Vij did not change anything. And only thing that has changed is your local leadership and your commitment from whichever area you control it to the Indian market. Now, the main question that you asked me about technology industry, I think I want to again be critical. A friendly neighbor of Japan in almost everything, whether it is semiconductor, whether it is entertainment electronics, whether it is the car industry, or whether it is the heavy machinery. I mean, do you think the rate of growth of a Korean industry is slightly faster than Japan? I mean, where was Sony and where was Samsung 15 years ago? Similarly, where was Hyundai? Where was Kia 15 years ago? So, somewhere I think the important differentiator of what made Japan successful is technology and is aggressiveness.
You see, when you go and market India offshore services to Japanese companies, they're not as quickly buying as the Americans did or as the Europeans did.
I mean, it is actually very difficult, Suresh. It's almost like, being in a
different world.
Tiered structure. For a normal company, it is almost impossible to do business in Japan, in IT industry. If the only way to, even Tata's had to realize that if they don't go ahead with such a permanent partnership, nowhere else in the world Tata's have given, TCS has given an equity position. I mean, the only place where they did it in Japan because they realized it was very difficult for them to do business on their own.
I feel that India is on another inflection point. In the past, that many of the focus was on the Western side. Now there is a renewed focus everywhere, but there's more focus on the Eastern side. And which other country to look for as far as Eastern focus is concerned, but the second largest economy in the world, which is Japan. So the reason we kind of organize this is we want to bring together a confluence of top Indian leaders and top Japanese leaders and exchange some great ideas to take both the economies forward.
When I look at the overall labor environment, when I look at overall policies that are prevalent in India regarding labor, I personally feel India as a country does not provide a bad working environment. As a matter of fact, our labor policies may be a little rigid, may have a lot of interference from various parts of the government, but I can only say that I do business globally. I do business in 53 countries, and sometimes I can tell you that India starts looking very, very good, particularly when you compare to the countries in Latin America, countries in Europe.
So, Shinoe-san, would the reverse flow of business also be a reality? Just like Japanese investments and business comes here, would Indian companies also get to work in the technology segment particularly?
Yeah, I think so. Short answer is yes. And but as CP mentioned, I agree that the Japanese market is a difficult market. So I'm not saying that it's easy job, but first, Japanese government also understands that it's quite important for us to be more open and receiving more FDI as Japan, because accumulated FDI per GDP is not so high in Japan compared with other countries. So FDI benefit Japan. That will increase employment. That will give us some technology from India or from other country. So that's important for Japan, and such kind of sentiment started to, understood in Japan. And also, we Japanese also started to think that we cannot do everything. So that means if there was a comparative advantage in Japanese companies, we can serve market not only Japan but also India or Africa or any other market. But if Indian company has a comparative advantage, why not they serve not only India but also Japan? So I think this is a good thing. But as Shibe mentioned, because Japanese companies is a difficult market, so good collaboration can be very beneficial for both companies, I think.
That's a good point here, CP. Sorry, Aditya.
Just a related point I wanted to make to what CP said. Honestly, I think one of the things that we've seen developing well, and I think Nakashima-san mentioned this during his address or his presentation as well, is that India is now slowly becoming a base for many companies and also a lot of Japanese companies to become a source of export to other countries.
Yeah.
But what is critical for two-way trade is that India has a lot to offer, and we must have reciprocity on products and services that India could provide potentially, that it has successfully provided in other parts of the world. You know, for example, technology being one sector, where CP is coming from.
I mean, there could be one day a policy, like it happens in defense exports, that you need an offset program, that if you're doing business here, you have to minimum offtake certain percentage from India.
There's enough and more done in India by Japanese companies to demonstrate that they adapt, and they adapt well. They can focus on the cost piece, which, by the way, India happens to be the most trying country in terms of pricing in the world, and have demonstrated that they earn handsome profits despite the low pricing, so therefore they've been able to address it. On the other hand, there are certain sectors where Japan has been hesitant, defense being one, which CP mentioned. But clearly with the current environment between Japan and India, and the two prime ministers having spent so much time together, and the treaty that's been recently signed, I'm sure these new avenues will open up. I think my humble submission is to Japanese companies, be open-minded to us coming to you there as well, which is equally critical.
I can imagine business is always more important than attracting investments for enabling business for investors. So we also need to get some business. That's spirit is taken. But fundamental question: when Japanese or other investments come to India, somewhere there is a lurking fear. CP, you are on the board of Mahindra and you run General Motors. There is a lurking fear. Handling labor is a very tough proposition. Handling the archaic laws, number of inspections, number of Factory Act, number of obstacles of an undefinable nature is very, very tough. You know, they're not maybe big impact, but they're irritable. They're very, very nuisanceable, if I can say that. So, did you manage it better, or is the Indian company managing it better?
Listen, I can only tell you from my perspective that, again, I run workforces globally, except that the workforces that I run globally are all white-collared. Now, Suresh, I promise you that dealing with a white-collared worker in most of the parts of the world, tried dealing with them, and RGF is a global firm, you guys know it better. Try getting rid of one employee in Brazil. Try getting rid of one guy in Nordic countries. I mean, you're talking here about union militancy. One individual can make you lose your sleep. So I personally believe it is always a sensitive topic everywhere in the world. Now, question is, on a degree of 0 to 10, is dealing with Indian labor at 5 or 6? Or comparatively dealing with a labor in Italy, I would say Italy is more difficult. Because, I mean, again, the point I'm trying to make is that India has always been a challenging environment. And I'm not trying to say is that India is a country where the ease of doing business is very, very simple. I mean, our entry barriers are high, but also I want to remind everyone here is entry barriers are higher in Japan. So I do hope both the sides entry barriers come down, but determined people, like for example, if you ask my engineers that you have to go to Italy or you have to go to Japan, they're more happy in Japan. Why? The more Indian restaurants in Tokyo, every 500 meters, probably there are 2. So, I mean, they go to an ISKCON temple, they get their Indian vegetarian food in some Govinda restaurant there, and they're very, very happy. So it's not that the people are not welcoming. People are very welcoming, and I think if we have a determined leadership, they will find a way.
Whatever said and done, CP, Aditya, and Shinoy-san, Japanese companies have played very serious business in India. They're all manufacturing. None of them are trading. Most of them are putting in big money here, employing thousands of people, and looking at India for 10 years, 20 years, and long term. And they're not just making products and selling, they're building cities, they're building rail system, and they're building freight corridors and what have you. So there's some serious long-term interest. But as the panel concludes, that there's only one way to go for Japanese-India investments and Japanese-India economic ties. If it's 2% trade or 4% trade, it only can go up. So with that hope, we want to continue to work with Japanese clients of ours and work with Japanese companies to collaborate in whatever manner we can. That's how I would end up this panel.
The reason why we organized this event was there is an increasing need felt by the Japanese clients we serve that they have to learn the best practices from corporates who are from other countries, including Indian corporates. They want to know how some of the corporates in India expanded so rapidly and what are the human resources challenges that they faced. So that they kept on asking us over a number of interactions. So we said the best thing is to collect all of them and have a knowledge sharing forum. And one thing led to the other, and we also started including the new policies which are coming up in the area of managing labor, managing HR, and so on. So the purpose is really to bring the Japanese contingent of corporate which are working in India along with other nationalities.
Well, I think the new government is talking about doing business with ease, is talking about maximum governance, minimum government, is talking about reforming regulatory framework so that investments could more easily materialize. So I think these are all value propositions that the new government is talking about, which are fundamentally different from the past. And they are talking about stable tax regime. So all of this would be music to those who are serious business players, both in India and those who are likely to be foreign investors into India.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.